Welcome everybody. Want you all to welcome my guest, Hooded Cobra Commander 788, Brian.
How do you do?
How are you doing this evening?
Not bad, not bad. It's a rainy night here, so it's a nice evening to sit down, have a nice, comfortable chat.
Well, hopefully, it is Oklahoma, so hopefully neither one of us lose power. That should be good.
There's always a possibility that I'll wake up in Munchkin Land and have to follow a yellow brick road to find my way back home.
Exactly.
Isn't that right, Kodo?
Yeah. That's kind of how it works here, right?
Yeah.
A little bit of panic, a little bit of everything. All right. So basically, the way this starts, we're going to talk about Venn diagrams. So I'm assuming you know what a Venn diagram is, right?
I do.
Okay. So every one of my guests, I kind of go over this Venn diagram. It's from a comedian. It's the Myers-Briggs Geek Nerd Dork version. What we're going to talk about is first, if you have a high IQ and you have an obsession, you're considered a geek. If you have obsessions and you're socially awkward, you're a stalker. If you are a high IQ and socially awkward, you're a dork. And if you have a high IQ, you're socially awkward, and you have an obsession, you follow into the nerd category. So, where do you think you lie on that spectrum?
I think I'm almost like dead center nerd, although I don't know that anyone would vouch for my IQ. So maybe
there seems to be a relative theme. Everyone says that, and I'm like, you know what? You can communicate in a way that a lot of people can't communicate. So I think you're covered. I think you're covered on the intelligence quotient.
Me talk English good.
There you go. That's how that works. Is that English? I don't know. All right. So what we're going to do from here, I'm just kind of talk about some other things, but we're going to check in with the chat first, and then we're going to find out what you got this week, and then we'll go from there. Just want to say hi, Brick. Yes, you were first besides me. Ted Darklaw of Hella Dope Toys. Thanks for checking in. Glad you're in the background listening. That way I can, when I throw some positive vibes that are later here in a little bit, when I pump everybody up after getting my order this week. Matthew Masson, good evening, sir. Thanos Copter, hello. Action Figs, what's up, Ed? Cobweb, Jacob, how you doing, sir? Then there's this troublemaker. Lawrence, what's up? And that is everybody. We are caught up for now. Hey, that never happens. Never get caught up on that. Of course, from here on out, I will probably ignore the comments because, half the time I'm not paying attention to them anyway. I'm trying to get better about that. I'm not always good at that. So what I kind of discuss with my guests, and I talk about the need as adults for us to find ways to play. A play state would be defined as a state of mind when one's absorbed in an activity and you get enjoyment from it, and you also kind of lose that sense of time. You have a suspension of a sense of time. So, given that definition, when was the last time you played?
See, I could have. The first thing that comes to mind is something completely inappropriate. So I'm not going there. You're welcome. And I feel that this means I'm maturing. This is maturity on my part. That's actually a really good question. It was probably when I was doing a video, but which one? The videos have been so rapid fire lately because we're in Cobra Convergence that I barely had time to absorb them anytime this month. But yeah, I do have that experience, either shooting videos or editing videos. Editing videos used to be my favorite thing. I liked editing more than than shooting the videos, even, because it was fun to see all of those things get stitched together into, the final thing that people see. But that's a really good question. And the fact that I don't have a ready answer means that it's probably been too long.
We forget that as adults. I think we forget that even as adults, that play is essential to our health, our well-being, our mental functioning. Our daily tasks can just eventually weigh down on us, and then we forget kind of to have fun.
There is a toy collecting experience that kind of gave me that sense. It's been a few months, but my girlfriend, Marianne, she's a big fan of Stargate, which is a series that I had ignored for its entire existence. So I'm just now kind of getting turned on to it. But I found the Hasbro Stargate toy line, which is super goofy. I mean, it's ridiculous. Mm-hmm. But it's a small line and it's relatively inexpensive. And so I just got all of them. And that actually is probably the most fun that I've had toy hunting in a while, looking for these just goofy things of very little value that nobody else wants. But it really kind of took me back to the early days of collecting G.I. Joe when everything was new to me. Everything was... I was getting everything for the first time, seeing these figures as an adult collector for the first time. That's been a few months ago, but that was a really great experience.
So once Cobra Convergence is over, your homework is to get some more play.
That's a good idea. I have
all work and no play makes hoodie unpleasant, right?
That's right. That's what I keep typing over and over and over, on page after page.
So when you were a child, we kind of talk about how we played as a child. So, like for me as a child, I would play all of my figures played together. It didn't matter what scale it was. I mean, if it was Thundercats and G.I. Joe, and it was He-Man and Masters of the Universe, it was Silverhawks, they all kind of played together. I didn't have a, issue with scale as a kid. Now, as an adult, different story. Can't have 4-inch with 6-inch, 6-inch with 7-inch, and something about that scale as an adult just drives me crazy. But so when you were a child, what were your favorite ways to play?
I'm sorry, say again?
So what was your favorite ways to play when you were a child?
Oh, sorry. Well, I mean, I played with toys a lot, played with action figures a lot. Started out playing with Star Wars because that was hot at the time, before G.I. Joe. So, we had, lots of Star Wars. That was the thing. That was a lot of fun. When G.I. Joe came along, it didn't completely eliminate everything else, but everybody in the neighborhood liked it. So it was a reason that we could all get together and do something. So like all the kids in the neighborhood, my brother and me and our friends, we would get together and get all our stuff together and play together with this thing. So it became like a neighborhood activity. The communal play aspect of G.I. Joe sort of took over. Honestly, like how specifically we played, it ranged all over because there were so many kids involved. Everybody had a different idea of what to do and what was fun. So, we did lots of different things. Most of the time, I'd say that we just kind of made up storylines and scenarios as we went. We never really followed the comic book or the cartoon or anything like that. We were more freewheeling than that. But in the winter it was indoors, and in the summer it was outdoors, and just all of our friends got together and we all had one big thing. Of course, everybody had their own separate interests, but that was the one thing that we all had in common.
So, do you remember how that play made you feel?
Yeah, I mean, as a young person, playing with toys that sort of represented like grown-up things, jets and vehicles and stuff, it made me feel more grown up. Even though I couldn't drive a car yet, I could move the vamp around. I got a lot of excitement out of that. It made me feel like um, I was uh, I was more grown up, oddly, because I was playing with toys. But also, it was something that was very creative. I mean, we made some intricate storylines with these action figures, and we would just keep going until we got bored with it, and we start over and do another one. So there was a lot of creativity, and I think uh, that's what one of the things that I remember most about it, because I need a creative outlet. That's something that I've come to know, is I really, to be happy, I need to be creative in some way. And I think it kind of started there. We were creating, every day. So
Head canon,
yeah.
creating a head canon. It's interesting that we do that. I mean, there's some of us that have to be creative, and it's one of those things that for the longest time I fought in myself as I fought that creative side. Um, it got to the point where I was stressed out. My son is severe, profound autism, and he's a risk to himself and others. So it's one of those things that it's a constant reminder, and I stopped taking care of myself because my focus was solely on caring for him. And over time, that wore down on me, and I came back to collecting, really honestly, because I remembered playing with my toys as a kid. I was having dreams of playing with my toys, and I didn't know why. It was weird. I'm a 49-year-old man. At 47, I'm having dreams of playing with my G.I. Joes in the attic. It was weird.
Your brain remembers that, though. That was a time, probably for both of us, that was. I mean, now I guess we would say was pretty. It was pure.
Yeah.
We were just having fun. We didn't have adult responsibilities, and we had vast universes at our disposal that we could make up. Yeah, that's. I think the brain remembers that, and I think that sometimes it goes back to that when it needs to.
Well, and it brought me to this today. So we're where we're at, relatively short period of time, because I started collecting again in 2022, January of 2022. So in that short period of time, I went from not collecting anything to collecting, doing customs, building dios. There's a whole level it's accelerated, and now doing a show every Friday. So it's kind of accelerated to this level of, like, if you had told me in January of 2022 that I'd be doing this, I would have laughed you out of the room. It's just one of those weird things, is that I'd never imagined that I would be here.
Well, don't worry, it's not addictive. You can stop anytime you want, and don't let anybody tell you differently.
I realize that I can, but I'm enjoying it. I am enjoying it. I get good guests. I get people like you, and I get to talk to people that, if really, I've got some people coming on eventually that I don't agree with, but I'm going to have them on. We're going to have a conversation because I think it's important.
Cool.
So relative to that same feelings that you had as a kid, can you remember the last time you had those feelings as an adult?
Yeah, kind of. And again, it's been a really long time. And again, not equating it with just like the feeling of having fun, but that feeling of kind of creativity that I experienced playing with toys. What it would have been something like 2007, 2008. I was drawing. I was making web comics, and this is a very amateurish thing. Like I decided to like make my own comic books, so I was just drawing a page at a time. I was I had a desk job that required a lot of idle time, so I would just get the printer paper and a pencil and a pen, a ballpoint pen, and I would draw comic books, you know, ink them, letter them, and just do them a page at a time and just kind of let them unfold. I can't say that any of them necessarily were very good, but you know what? It was a lot like that. I was able to kind of create a world that characters occupied. I could make it go anywhere that I wanted to. It was a lot of fun. It was that was, I think, as an adult, when I realized that I need a creative outlet, and that, you know, I just kind of fell into it. I just tried it and just kept going for, I don't know, about year and a half or something like that. But yeah, that's the moment that springs to mind as feeling a lot like creating those worlds and stories in action figure form.
So, how do you play with your toys now versus playing with them then?
Honestly, I don't get a chance to play with them as much now, and that's like I get to review them, I get to look at them, I get to handle them, I get to do all things with them, but like put them in a play scenario, it's something that I rarely get to do. That's something that like G.I. Joeberg, they are great at that. They do some really awesome play motion stuff, fantastic. I did a little bit of that earlier on in the channel, but I've discovered it's really hard.
It takes a long time too.
It's incredibly time consuming, and I've got a lot of admiration for those who can do it. But I mean, right now, I'm in a smaller space than I was a couple of years ago. So right now, a lot of the stuff just has to live in boxes, which is not ideal. That's not what I intended to do. I'd love to even just have these out to display, let alone play with. But right now, I just don't have the space for it. So someday they're going to be freed from their boxes. I can have them out. I can play around with them. Now, I do have kids. I have two girls. They never had any interest in this stuff at all. If they did, I think we would have played together. You know, I think we would have done all the things. You know, dad and kid. But and it's not, you know, traditional gender roles or anything like that either. They were free to do whatever they wanted. Play with whatever type of toy suited them. They had zero interest in any of this, which on the one hand, more for me.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, it's like it doesn't give me a whole lot of opportunity to like get down in the dirt
and dirty. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you mentioned Star Wars and you mentioned G.I. Joe. Were there any other childhood toy lines that you were fond of, or that you had, or that you played with constantly?
I got a bit of Transformers and Centurions and Mask. You know, the big ones. You know, the really popular ones. There were like these little rinky-dink Robotech toys that for some reason I really gravitated toward. But really, those were kind of just like a side thing. Mm-hmm. G.I. Joe was the main thing up till the point where we stopped playing with them. But occasionally we do something, you know, else. You know, well, okay, we're going to do Centurions today or whatever. Battle Force 2000 is G.I. Joe, but we got those and we played with the sci-fi toys. So we would play with like the Star Wars and stuff with Battle Force 2000, as if it was part of that universe rather than part of the G.I. Joe universe.
It fits a little better there.
Yeah, so we did have a use for it. We did. Battle Force, at least for us at the time, Battle Force 2000 didn't really fit, in how we saw G.I. Joe, which admittedly was somewhat limited. We were children,
Yeah.
but we could see it fitting elsewhere. So we would expand. Transformers were really expensive, so my parents didn't get us a lot of them. Same with Mask. Mask, they were in a different scale, which you scale didn't bother you. It was a problem for us at the time. We were. I'm not proud to say it, but I think my friends and I were toy snobs at a very young age. I'm not proud of that. I hope I've grown out of that. But yeah, the scale, that was an issue. So like we would play with Mask, but since they weren't in the same scale, we couldn't put them up against our Cobra guys, I think probably the same toy lines that most kids at that time played with. It was kind of a golden age. Every time you would turn around, there'd be something new and cool taking off. So I didn't really get into He-Man because my parents didn't like it. I've gotten more interested in Masters of the Universe as an adult. So I'd say that's not one that I didn't get into. I really wanted the Silverhawks figures because I thought they looked really cool. But I never did get one. It's like, Mom, it's shiny. I want it. And she's like, no. And I never got it.
That's one of those things as kids. We see it. Ooh, what's this? Give it to me.
So she has no idea the collectible value of those things now.
You know what? It's weird. My mom, this is my mom and my ex-wife. They had a garage sale. They sold all of my Joe, including my flag. All of my figures, all of my vehicles, they were all in good shape. $75. This was 96. So
somebody was like, woo-hoo.
Yeah. Somebody went home cheering after that one.
Yeah.
Even I put I don't want to sell it price on them, but yeah, that's what happened.
Yeah.
So I was just like, you know what? It is at the time it was like, you know what? I didn't have space for it. I had a 500 square foot apartment. There's just no room.
Yeah. At least you got $75 out of it. My stuff just kind of disappeared. My parents moved a couple of times, and she's like, "Oh, I didn't throw anything out. I don't know where it is."
Well, that was after I had already had to give up my. I had Thundercats. I had the Cats there. I had Thunder Tank. I had pretty much every figure, and then I had Masters of the Universe, Snake Mountains, Fright Zone. I had it all. And those I get donated to charity when we moved out of the house after high school, so I could go to college. So, you got to give up some of your childhood things to go at that point. But it's weird how we do that. We transfer that, but if I could go back, I would go back and get some of that stuff. I know some of it's ridiculously to get a Cat Slayer would be $1,000. I'm just like, are you kidding me?
This is the reason we have a toy collector market, is because some guy's mom got rid of stuff in 1996 at a garage sale.
Yeah.
So now it's out there in the pool, in the market for the rest of us to find. Yeah. So thanks.
Yeah. It's one of those things. So are there any toys that you had as a child that you wanted to go back and track down?
There were some, but I ended up finding, and like the G.I. Joe stuff. I've been getting the G.I. Joe stuff. I'm not as attached to the Star Wars and Transformers stuff, but there were some toys as a small child that I really loved. One of which was a mechanical battery-powered robot, like a metal robot with a plastic head, and it had the thing in the chest would open up and the guns would shoot out. It was I was very fond of that toy. So I thought I might track that down, but I ended up not needing to, because despite the fact that none of my GI Joe vehicles and very few of my figures survived, that thing turned up in a garage, and so I have it. I actually have it. That's the thing that jumps to mind. There were some toys that I didn't have that I wouldn't mind going back and get, because we didn't have laser tag. We had like the cheap knockoff.
That's kind of how that works. So you always knew somebody that had laser tag, and then you had the laser lights, whatever it was.
It's not the same, Mom. It's not the same. But
you don't get the Transformers. You get the knockoff Transers.
Now, we did have GoBots, and I will say that, first of all, GoBots were first to the market. I remember that very clearly, and I remember that my mom thought they were neato. So, at Kmart one time, she's like, "You want one of those? You want one of those GoBots? You can have a GoBot. Go get a GoBot." I think she wanted to see it transform.
I think she probably wanted to see what happened with it more than you did. You're like, no, I don't want that. I want the GI Joe, Mom. No, it's always interesting to see those toys that if we could go back and get, we would. So, primarily, your collection right now is Joe.
Yes.
You were talking about the Stargate. Any other small lines that you're tracking down actively?
As far as vintage lines, not really. I have dabbled a bit. I've picked up the odd Star Wars, and I've got a couple Transformers here and there. I've got a He-Man, and just a few odds and ends. But I decided a long time ago that I want to limit the scope of my collection, because while I do want to have stuff that is meaningful to me and I want to have a lot of it, I can't really get everything. Early in my collecting journey, I caught a documentary about the GI Joe super collector Air Devon. It's on YouTube. It's in 18 parts, and that was really fascinating. This is a woman who tried to collect everything, literally everything from 1964 to modern, everything U.S. release and every foreign release of it. That
would be a headache.
Her goal was to write a book, a definitive book about everything. And it had taken over her house. And there's one of the episodes where they invite some fans in to see her vast collection, and they ooh and awe over it. And one of them says that he wishes he had all this stuff, and she says, no, you don't wish that you had all this stuff. If I had known that it was going to grow to this size, I probably wouldn't have started. It's too much. We had more fun with the collection when it was way smaller than this. And eventually, I think around 2014, she did end up selling that collection. She totally got out of it. But I took that as kind of a cautionary tale. I want to enjoy it. I want to have fun with it. But there's a threshold beyond which it's not fun anymore. So I'm trying to be scrupulous about picking up new toy lines other than just dabbling. Now, I mentioned Stargate. The entire collection fits in one box, the whole thing. So that's okay. That's fine.
But there's a lot of Joe reuse in it too, isn't there?
Absolutely, there is, and that's one of the reasons why
it fits in that line thematically as well.
That's
too.
why it piqued my interest. It's like, oh, what that looks very familiar.
Yeah.
But yeah, I dabble, but other than that, I try to stick with what I've committed to, and I'm just working on that.
So when you dabble, do you dabble because it's an interesting looking figure, or is it something that piques your interest, or is it something that you kind of get word of mouth from others? Is it more of ooh, that just looks cool, I want it? Ooh, shiny.
That's the hardest one to resist, is like I see something that looks cool and I want to get it, and I have to resist that because I can't get everything that looks cool. There's a lot. So what I've done is like I've picked up a few that are of particular interest. Like I got a He-Man because it's an important toy line. I got like a Micronauts vehicle because it's related to the scale of 3 3/4 inches before G.I. Joe. So I picked up a few things that even if they're not like strictly for reference for a video, they're of maybe historical significance, like the rough trucks. So Ron Rudat designed the rough trucks for Hasbro before G.I. Joe was even before they even approved going with the new G.I. Joe. So I went and I found a rough trucks because that is something that is part of Ron Rudat's history. Therefore, it's part of G.I. Joe's history. So it's part of toy history. So, so I picked that up. So I have various reasons why, but I really try to control the urge to pick up something that looks cool. So there's to kind of educate myself, I watched a lot of old toy commercials going back to the 50s. And the 50s, they had some wild toys. So some pretty amazing stuff. And so occasionally I'll see one. And I'm like, I go into a toy store and I see a Robot Commando in the box. And I almost lose my mind. And I'm like, that is a toy from the 50s. It still exists. It's right in front of me. I know what it is. Probably nobody else knows what it is. But no. If I start doing that, then I'm going to end up like with toys all stacked up behind me.
It's terrible, right?
Yeah, we don't want that.
Yeah. Thankfully, I'm in my living room, so you don't see my bedrooms. They're full of toys. My wife, I was telling her I was going to get another display shelf. And she goes, the toys are taking over 2 rooms now. We need to have a conversation.
I've had that conversation before.
So Ashley Wilbanks is asking if you've ever done a collection tour.
First of all, hello, Ashley Wilbanks, and thanks for being in Cobra Convergence. I have, but it's been a really long time. Back when I had my own Joe room at the old house and I had more stuff out on display, I did a walkthrough and showed like the collection, the display, and the studio that I had set up in there. Right now, I couldn't. Like, even if I want, you're seeing most of it. I have like all the closets are stacked floor to ceiling with storage crates. Everything's crammed in wherever it'll fit. So it wouldn't be much of a tour right now. But if I can ever get this stuff out again, so that even I can see it, then I would be happy to show everyone. But I did do that, but it's been a few years now.
All right, Action Fix has a question about Fisher-Price Adventure People. We have a lot of ones that are our age. We kind of had those first, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That predated. I think that even predated Star Wars. I do. I'm trying to think of which ones I have. I think I have like the spaceman with the bubble helmet, and he's got like the green face.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got like a motorcycle rider. I've got a few of them here and there. That's another one. That's a good question. That's another one that I picked up because of its historical relation to action figures at the 3 3/4 inch scale. So yeah, I picked up a few of those. So I do have them. It's in a box somewhere.
Yeah, what I did was when I came back to collecting in January, I started with Joe and I got all the classifieds within the first like month and a half that I was back collecting, and I was like, okay, now what? And then it was 25th, 50th, and Pursuit of Cobra, and I got those figures. Now I didn't get any vehicles except for the retro vehicles that were coming out. And then kind of from there it snowballed, and now I'm to the point where it's like, yeah, it's a lot. I've cut lines, I've added lines, I've moved lines to the left. My problem is I do customs. So when I find a clearance special, there's 3 or 4 that are going into a thing that are going to go in my garage, and then I will eventually get around to making a custom out of them, something.
Yeah.
So that's the trick for me, is when I curate that, I have to kind of remember that. I mean, when I get stuff, I have to think about, okay, well, where am I going to put it? And then I have to add into the fact, is this something that I would use to make a custom? And if I can answer yes to one of those, then I'm probably going to get it. But I also have this kind of thing where I wanted a representative of all my childhood toy lines. So when I came back, I got, obviously the Joes. They were my number one toy as a kid, as I grew up. Second behind them was Masters of the Universe. So I have a He-Man and a Skeletor. And then I have a Lion-O and a Mum-Ra that was from the Bandai collection. And then, of course, I got into Super 7. I'll just get the main Thundercats and the main mutants. And then I got a Silverhawks. I got Ramen Toys, Quicksilver, and Monstar. I'm good at that point. I don't need any more Silverhawks. I got my 2 representatives, and I can hold on to those childhood toys that way. Didn't need to go any further, because that's a rabbit hole I don't want to go down, because that can get expensive really quickly.
Did you have like a limiting principle on what you got, or were you a bit more freewheeling?
When I first came back, I was freewheeling, but my 25th, 50th, and 30th, those are only figures that I had as a kid, or at least versions of those figures, because there's a few from the Collectors Club that are like Tiger Force, Tunnel Rat. He was a lot cheaper to get than the actual Tunnel Rat from those collections, and I was like, just get I just need the figure. I don't have to worry about what version it is. It didn't bother me. I didn't care what they were wearing. It was just had to be that character. It's kind of one of those things. It's I don't need all of them. I just need a version. So that way I can kind of connect with it that way. And all of those are on card, and they're up on a wall. So when I walk in that room, it's like I'm in Toys R Us or KB Toys as a kid, and it's instantaneous. I see those things on the wall, and it's like walking down an aisle. And I connect with that kid in me that's like, yes. So if I wanted to take something off the wall, I could.
That's awesome.
So you have you continuously collected, or did you come back to collecting, and what kind of was that? What brought you back?
I came back to it, and I came back to it later than I might have, because I had been thinking about collecting and getting back specifically into G.I. Joe maybe around 2009-ish, but I didn't. I just felt like I was too mature for that kind of thing. This is like, I'm a young person. I'm taking college courses. I'm going to be like president of the United States. I can't have a bunch of toys, even though I wanted some. And the Rise of Cobra movie came out, and there was a nostalgia buzz from it, but it wasn't quite what I was hoping. Maybe if it had been more along the lines of the kind of movie that I was hoping it would be, maybe I would have jumped in then. But in 2014, I finally started getting a few things. I started really mainly because I was in a really bad place. I mean, I was having really bad family problems. I was in the middle of law school trying to do these classes, and temporarily, I was couch surfing. I didn't really have a place to live, really. So things were pretty miserable. So I went back to something that I remember being fun and joyful and really just associated with good memories. And, that was G.I. Joe. I mean, that's the first thing that came to mind. There really wasn't anything close. As much as I like Star Wars or Transformers, neither of those were even close. G.I. Joe was what we loved as kids, and that's what I decided to look into just as a way to kind of get my mind off of things. And that's when I discovered Form BX257 on YouTube, Kevin. And that was just amazing to see these things again that I haven't seen. Like I have the memories of them. But they're really old memories. So to see them again is just it's like a time warp. I watched all of his videos, and then things started getting a little bit better. I'm get a little bit closer to law school or to finishing law school. And I decide, I look on eBay, and at that time, the figures are not that expensive.
Yeah.
The prices have gone up.
Yeah.
But at the time, it's like, I could do this. And what I decided was I just wanted to get the 1982 series, just the 82 series. I started collecting in 82. I'll just get the 82 series. The whole collection will fit on one shelf. And then I got the His Tank because I wanted it. And that's not 82. So it just... from there, it was all downhill. But it wasn't long after that I saw the Air Devon video. So I set some parameters. I set a scope for the collection, and I started focusing on that. But yeah, the original plan was just the 82 guys. The whole collection fit on one shelf. That was the plan.
Yeah, isn't that kind of how we do? We say, oh, this is the rule. But I think we should preface that this is the rule for now.
Yes.
It's the rule for now, because whatever the now is could change, and 3 weeks we could be collecting something different.
Rules can be flexible. More of a guideline than a rule.
Yeah, it's there are some hard rules in my collection, but there's also some soft rules. I have to know when I'm going to go for the hard rule and the soft rule. So Brick Something has a question. He asks how open you are and other toy collectors to new IP or toy lines to be a fan of. What does it take to catch your interest?
Oh, yeah. So, I did jump into some Kickstarters for Call Sign Longbow and Operation Recall. These are things that are being done by people that I like and that I care about. Delta 17 is another toy line that's coming up that looks like it's going to be really cool. I have to be the G.I. Joe guy, right? That has to be the focus. Even if I really wanted to delve into lots of other stuff, I have a show. I have to have stuff for the show. So I have to focus on that. But if there's something that a friend is doing and looks really cool, I'm really happy to get into that. And Call Sign Longbow, yes, and Operation Recall are really cool projects. That's really exciting. But that's those are mainly the circumstances that draw me into a new toy line. Classified is G.I. Joe, so I got Classified, but I mean there's a lot of cool stuff out there, a lot of really nostalgic stuff out there. A lot of the toy lines from the 80s are making a resurgence in more modern toys, but they look like a lot of them look really cool. A lot of the newer Masters of the Universe figures look really cool. My kid has gotten into Ninja Turtles recently, so I've been looking at a few of those, and some of those look really cool. But I have to resist. It really isn't because I don't want it. I absolutely do. But I want to stick with the G.I. Joe focus. I do still get more satisfaction out of that. That's still where I get the most joy. But yeah, occasionally if something comes along, especially if it's something that involves somebody that I know, somebody that I care about, I like to give those a try.
Now, did you back RoboSkull?
I did, yes.
Okay. You didn't mention it, so I was like, yeah.
Yeah. Right now there are so many.
It is. There's a glut of those. I guess Kickstarter place thing, because I've backed a bunch. I did RoboSkull, and that's because it ties into G.I. Joe. It was one of those first ones that came out. I'm not doing 3 3/4 inch figures really, so I didn't really do the Call Sign Longbow or the Carson's Operation Recall or Legends of the Hidden Force. I know Ken's is going to be, the Delta 17 is going to be, it's already pretty much getting ready to be made, so maybe I'll pick up a couple of those, but it's just not, it's not my primary scale.
Yeah.
You know, my primary scale now is 6 inch and 7 inch.
Yeah. And, that's, I think that you've got to follow what you enjoy. I think, peppering things, spicing things up a little bit now and then, I think is a good thing. But I'm on the same page. Like, I have a focus. That's where I get, I'm the most interested, and that's still been my focus. Even though I dabble, that's still been my focus.
Now, so since we kind of talked about what you collect, we're going to actually go through some of the stuff and look at some of your collection. Now, honestly, I literally probably could have just gone through and got an entire picture of the entire G.I. Joe collection from 1982 to probably 1994, right? And we would have been covered, right?
I've got a few. There's some gaps. I still got to fill some holes.
But I figured I would start with your namesake, the Hooded Cobra Commander, one of the first mail-aways. I remember getting this figure, and it was just cool. I liked the idea of a mail-away figure. I think I did one every year at least. I was really hesitant to cut up my boxes, though, to take my flag points off, because I was that weird kid that wanted to keep the boxes. Now, I did find out that my mom was throwing my boxes away when I would go visit my dad. Not cool. She finally admitted to that this year. She's like, yeah, I was throwing those out when you went to your dad. So I pulled some vehicles and some photos that I thought were really cool. Now, some of these I'd never seen before. So, like this one I had never seen before. I thought it was pretty. It's very reminiscent of those early vehicles as far as military application. It's not one of the weird ones that we get toward the end. So what year is this? 88, 89?
I want to say 90, the hammer. And that particular picture, it looks like I didn't put the antenna in. The antenna is a frequently missing part on that one. The hammer is awesome. It's got like a ton of features and like a really great detail. It's also a little bit odd in that some of those parts are just incredibly fragile, like ridiculously fragile. And that's probably the main knock on it. That's why usually the antenna is missing, because usually the antenna is broken.
That's kind of like the rope thing for the Wolverine.
Yeah. But I mean, look at this. I mean, it's based on the Humvee.
Yeah.
But it's G.I. Joe-ified with about 150 guns on it.
Yeah.
And this came out after I was out of the line. I was not collecting anymore. I wasn't playing with it anymore. But if this had come out a few years earlier, I would have loved this. It looks great.
Yeah, I think I stopped collecting in '87 because Jinx, Big Boa, and Psych Out were my last 3 figures. Now here's the classic. Here's the Dreadnought Leader Zartan. Love Zartan. I loved this set as a kid. This was one of my favorite sets to play with. Loved the snow skier. Loved the multiple faces, and you could just do so much with it. It was just cool. And the color change, that was awesome too.
Yeah, I mean, it was a departure at the time. There was really nothing in G.I. Joe like it at the time. It was just very different. But I mean, it's got great colors. It's got a cool gimmick. The character was written very well in the cartoon, in the comic book. So as weird as he was, it's still turned out really cool. And yeah, I did have this one as a kid, and I did really like it.
Yeah, this when I did my custom, I did a custom motorcycle for him, and they're similar colors, but not completely to this. I wanted to homage it. Now this is the G.I. Joe headquarters that came out in what, 90,
91, I think.
This is cool. I mean, this is definitely, you could tell that they were trying to make it more play feature, kind of that whole thing that was going on in that early 90s where they were just, everybody was trying to do multiple play features within or whatever. And this is like a foldable, collapsible. This was a cool looking headquarters. Now, I still love the first headquarters, but I thought this was very cool. When I came back and saw this the first time, I was like, wow, okay, that's kind of cool.
By the early 90s, they were very deliberately, trying to add features and, spring-loaded things, lots of play features to toys. It was very gimmicky, but it was intentional. They wanted you to be able to do something with everything. Now, as a young person, I would have found this like too gimmicky. Like I don't need all the spring loaded. Now, like I get it. I get what they were going for. It's got the panels on the front where like if you hit them, they'll pop open. It's almost like a game. You can fire things at it and blow things up. So, I mean, that was the trend. That's where toys were at the time, and I can appreciate that more now. This is an era of G.I. Joe that I think is maybe a little bit forgotten, especially with a lot of fans from the 80s. I think both of us left at about the same time, more or less. So we would have missed out on all of this. But I mean, look at it. It's huge. It's got all kinds of features. It's got all kinds of areas to play in. It's got electronics, lights, and sounds, and there's a lot there. So if I had been a young person when this came out with the kind of sensibilities that a collector, a young kid at that time had, I think I would have loved it. It's just like there's so much.
It's got a lot of little neat things. The Technicolor color thing makes me crazy though, because I can't stand that safety orange. I mean, I live with that now. Great classic figure. Duke, love it. Simple, easy. One of my favorites, Duke Flint. Interchangeable in my headcanon as far as personalities. Now, this was a photo that I found, and it's got your flag on display with some of your stuff on it. And obviously, this is the studio setup.
It's work in progress there.
Yeah. So now. Oh wow. Yeah. Awful stuff. Ninja Force, awful.
These are expensive. They're hard to find. This is. Well, I was happy to find them because it filled a gap in the collection, and I had something that was semi-rare, but this is the problem. This is why everyone should really think twice if they want to be a completist, because what that means is occasionally you will spend a lot of money on something that it doesn't
It doesn't do
speak to
anything.
you. It's not. It's just filling a gap in the collection. They are goofy though. These are. I mean, they're bonkers.
Well, no, Hans and Jay were doing the 93 list tonight, and these two things came up, and they both got they both got put into the C category of quality, but honestly, you could tell that was like only reason they were getting the C's was for the figures, because it certainly wasn't the vehicles.
And the vehicles at least were original. The figures are both just repaints.
Yeah.
Early like that. Yeah, they're it's wow. I haven't reviewed these. You gotta. I'll get to them. There's so much to say. No, actually, I have reviewed the Red Ninja. That's the Red Ninja, by the way.
Yeah,
the orange and blue guy. Yeah. That's the Red Ninja.
Yeah, I know. There's somebody. No, I love the Night Force Sarge here. The Night Force colors for that vehicle. I mean, for whatever reason, that whole Night Force vehicle line it's awesome. I like the dark black. There's something about that. Very simple, very basic, and it works.
That's another one that I got out. I missed out on because I got out too early, and now they're stupid expensive and hard to find.
Oh, I would love to have the whale. I can't remember. It's night something. What's the fluorescent orange fins are they're cool looking. Yeah. Just cool stuff. And of course, this is all of your Sarges, including a mail away one in the package still.
Yes. I did get a mail away one in the package. I made it a point to try to get all of the Sarges, and I got some still sealed, mainly because I was trying to figure out if there was any difference among the batons.
Yeah.
Because you've got 3 versions of these things that come with batons. They might be all the same, but it's kind of hard to tell unless you have it in the package. You know that it's exactly as it appeared when it was brand new, and you can see for yourself, is it any different from the other? So yeah, I ended up getting a couple. I don't typically collect vintage sealed stuff. But in this case, I was trying to figure out something about that baton that I just really could only do if I had the sealed ones.
Yeah, this is one of the few vintage figures that I actually went and tracked down. I actually got a reproduction. He was never on a card, but they made a reproduction card. Beggars Canyon Toys did, and I put him back on a bubble, and he sits on my wall of figures.
You know what they had? What they had at Joe Fest? They had a life-size Sergeant Slaughter. It was crazy.
Yeah, it was interactive too, right?
Yeah, it's very impressive. The AI on that, awesome.
Now here's the Dreadnought Assault vehicles. This Sears stuff is just I actually did a custom that looks a lot like that bike. Now I didn't do the neon vomit tire thing, and I couldn't do it. I had it for 5 seconds. I looked at it and I hated it. I was like, I'm not doing it. But it's an homage to it, and it's very close to it, and I'm okay with it just being an homage to it. But I loved all of those little weird Sears colorations that they did. Like the black Mobat that you got and those kind of things. It was really neat how back then the exclusives, it wasn't something that you had to have, and it was complimentary. It wasn't like you didn't have to get it.
Yeah,
they're so cool.
And I think Kirk Bazigian has said that a lot of these stores wanted exclusives. The easiest way to do an exclusive is just to redeco something that you already have and stamp out some more of it, and that's exactly what they did. Obviously these are not complete. This is another set that's really hard to come by. I had sincerely tried to get these complete as early as I could, but I wasn't successful because the prices on stuff like this, they really get crazy. But this I had to make sure to get this one specifically because I was trying to get all the vamps. The vamp went through so many. The vamp is in a rainbow of colors.
It is. It is one of the most versatile vehicles they used.
So yeah, exactly. So I had to get this because this lets me line up all of the vintage vamp variations.
All right, so here's your comparisons. This is classified, modern, and then vintage for each of these characters. I thought this was cool just to look at it because you can almost see in this case we would be seeing the de-evolution because you've got the ones at the back, but there's so much difference even between the 4-inch and the 3 3/4 inch. You can just see the quality and the difference in the technology at the time.
Yeah,
the limits that they don't have that they did have at the time. So
it's kind of cool. I haven't seen this picture in a while. It's kind of nice to see him.
I told you I did some scraping.
Hey,
this is the most expensive figure I paid for when I came back. I'm not a Snake Eyes fan. I've said this multiple times. It's okay. But for whatever reason, the completionist in me took over and said, "You need the set." So I went out and forked over way too much money for it.
I have to hand it to them. The packaging on this just makes it feel special.
It is. I think it's the best package of all of them that I own.
I remember opening it for the first time, and it's like it's the lost ark that I'm pulling out of this. This is they really made it look special. The figure, it's Snake Eyes. I mean, what can I say? It's Snake Eyes. There you have it, Snake Eyes. If you've seen Snake Eyes, that's exactly what it is. But they needed to knock this one out of the park. They needed to make it feel special, and I think they did. I still really like not just the figure, but I just like I
love the embossed cover. I love the way that it's set up inside the box. I like all of the little, even the print that comes with it. I mean, there's just lots of little cool things that they did to make this figure special, and it feels special.
Yeah.
I think that's the trick.
And who knows when you're going to get another Snake Eyes. So you got to grab them.
Yeah, we're never going to get another Snake Eyes. 9. Here's some more of your comparisons. Now, obviously, the Roadblock, we don't really have a comparison. And honestly, let's be honest, that's not Roadblock. That's heavy duty.
Yeah,
the face doesn't look anything like anybody else. It just doesn't make any sense.
At the time, I was trying to be a completionist for Classified. I gave that up fairly early. So I did. I tracked down all of those Target exclusive figures, which was a pain in the butt. But yeah. So and that Roadblock, it just didn't look like any. It didn't look like Roadblock, but I got it anyway. I would like to point out that although I'm not especially fond of Elektra or Ishtar, I do have Santa Claus Conquers the Martian back there, and the Beachhead box is leaning on a Maltese Falcon.
There you go. Now, this is a grail for a lot of collectors. There was a guy, there's a story. A guy paid $40,000 for a graded boxed Defiant. He then took it home, opened it, put it together, and broke the door, the gantry doors. Took it back, sold it back to them, got $5,000 for it.
Well, it's got broken doors.
It's $35,000. Oops.
Look, if that person is watching this show, and if you have an extra $40,000 laying around, I have some gantry doors that are pre-broken. You can even skip that step.
Yeah, that's I just some people just have more money than sense, I guess, and that gets it.
Yeah,
But this is a cool playset. It really is. I mean, it's just very fragile.
It's very fragile, far more fragile than it should be at that size. It as it is now, it is a bit more complete than you see it there, but it's. I don't know when I'm going to have this one finished. It is a very difficult one to complete. It almost would be better, like as expensive as it is, to just get one complete rather than to try to complete one, because there are so many parts to this thing, far more parts than for the flag, and every part is it's expensive and it's hard to find because most of them are easily broken.
Yeah.
So that has been a massive challenge. It's been stalled for a little while. I can see it. It's sitting right over there staring at me.
It's mocking you right now. Is that what you're saying? It's mocking you from the other side of the room.
Yeah. It's exactly what it's doing.
Like, complete me. Here's just a standard Cobra Commander. Now, you had this photo, and I thought it was interesting because I had not seen Storm Shadow or Snake Eyes actually in the store. When I got back into collecting, I think the only ones that I found in the store were Grunt and Stalker.
Yeah, so this would have been,
these had already gone off the shelf. But it's interesting that they were on an end cap
earlier, and I saw some folks were like taking these displays home with them, like. But I wasn't that keen on it when they announced the retro collection. When they said retro, I thought they meant 3 3/4 inch O-ring figures. Like when they say retro for other toy lines, they typically mean like retro,
exactly like the vintage. Yeah.
So I've never been a huge collector of the modern figures, so they didn't really turn me on that much. But it was nice to see. Now, the reason I took this picture is because, I mean, we have G.I. Joe back at retail. That is something, I mean, we had it a little bit with classified, so that had been amping up, but this is a display for G.I. Joe figures at retail. And that was after a dry period of a long time, a long gap.
The 50th anniversary was the last one before these, right?
What's that?
The 50th anniversary ones were the last ones before it, right?
Yeah. And then there was nothing. And the 50th ones were Toys R Us exclusives. Yeah. It had been a while since we had seen G.I. Joe like this. Even though I wasn't especially interested in the figures, it was really cool to see G.I. Joe on display like that.
And here's your Baroness and Cobra Coil. Now, this is the Fortnite one, right? That everybody was getting.
It is.
But they don't look bad. I've got quite a few Fortnite figures in my Joe collection right now. So I've got a Metal Mouth, and then I've got a couple scientists that I've picked up. These guys.
Hey, cool.
Their faces light up. I'm about to make every inbox collector cry. But
hey, that's cool. That's nice. That's well detailed. That's really cool.
Yeah, he's gonna be going with my Destro. I've got 3 of them, and I'm customizing them all. And they're gonna be going with my Iron Grenadiers Destro that I just finished as a custom. They're gonna be his Elite Guard bats. Now here's your tattoo. It's Cobra Convergence. So I figured we should definitely pay homage to the Cobra. And there's Gung Ho. Now, do you like this Gung Ho, or do you prefer the retro card one?
Well, see. Someday I may. Where is that retro? Someday I may open this. You never know. I might actually open this to check it. That's a tough one. That's a really tough question because obviously this is more like the vintage figure. It's got the vintage colors. But as much as I like the vintage colors, the baby blue uniform always struck me as just a little odd. So what we have here is just like updated. It's that's the wrong hat. He should have, well, this one at least has the something close to the Marine Corps cover. That's a tough thing to answer. There are things that I really like about it, and other things that I would do differently.
Well, I used his head to make Naugahyde.
That makes sense.
I just did some epoxy sculpt to make the mutton chops.
Yeah.
That head works great.
That makes a lot of sense. And I think the face sculpt has a lot of character. Yeah. If Gung Ho were going on a mission today with modern gear and equipment, he'd probably look a lot like this. Yeah. So, yeah.
Now, this is one of those figures that I have not opened. It's still in my B. I'm not opening it. It wasn't my preferred version of Storm Shadow. It wasn't, and it wasn't overly expensive when I bought it, but it was still not cheap. But I like this is more like close to version 2 Storm Shadow from the original line, but not quite with the camo. It would have, if they had just done the camo, I think it would have been.
Basically, a Ninja Force Storm Shadow, a lesser known vintage version of Storm Shadow. Really surprising that they went with this. For starters, it's for 90s fans, this might be exactly the one that you're looking for, but that's got to be one of the less popular vintage versions of Storm Shadow. It's just surprising to me that this was their choice. The figure itself, I think, is fine, but it's just surprising. It's an odd choice.
Now, here's the smaller pieces, and you have your pilot out on his pack. These were always cool. It was cool to see them trying something different. I mean, I'm not sure how militarily that works, but okay. Now, I did not have these as a kid, but I think it would have been cool to have these, just for the fact that it's an RC car that's actually a G.I. Joe vehicle. I mean, it's not like the Mobat or the Mauler where you could just, it was just a push and you could only go pretty much one direction.
It's a real operating radio controlled car, which I didn't have it either. I didn't know about it. And this was out during the time when I was getting G.I. Joe, never saw it. So I feel really fortunate to have the two variations now, and one of them, working really great. I scared the crap out of the cat. He jumped like 5 feet. It's the best thing I've ever invested in.
So here's our Ice Wolves, right? And this is what, 88?
87. But then the mail away was later, and I'm blanking on what year the mail away was.
It was always interesting to see kind of where the vehicle designs would go each year. There's like this progression of, we're going to get a little bit weirder and a little bit stranger, and we're going to try to make something that's definitely unique. And, we needed some variety other than, Polar Battle Cat and, the Snow Cat.
I think this was inspired by the Star Wars Snow Speeder. I also, they were really thinking outside the box with especially the Cobra vehicles. They just threw symmetry right out the window. But with the guns and the ski torpedoes and everything, it's better armed than the Snowcat. This would outmatch the Snowcat.
It was always interesting. Like, like the Wolverine. Once she shot her missiles, what's she gonna do?
That is something. As a kid, I'm like, okay, I got 12 shots, and then I've got to pretend that she has like a store of missiles somewhere that we can reload.
She could just stop in the middle of the firefight and load the missiles, right? Yeah.
Do what you got to do. Yeah.
Yeah. That was one of those designs when I was a kid. Now, sneak peek. Remember we were talking before we came on about kind of esoteric characters. This is one of those guys that was it was weird. Nowadays it seems creepy, not weird. But it's one of those characters that when you think about G.I. Joe, that's not exactly where you would go, right?
No, on your Venn diagram, he would be a stalker. Ironically, Stalker would not be a stalker, but Sneak Peek would be.
But it's weird esoteric characters that I liked. And of course, here's Crazy Legs. And the reason I brought him on is because the Night Force version is now on, for 19,000 backers on the Dragonfly. Hopefully we get there. I really would love to have that version. It would be nice. I'm happy that we got Glenda because I really, really wanted that body, because that body is going to be Scarlet Retro.
Yeah, what this means is that they'll have the tooling. They'll have the tooling for all these figures, so you can get the standard deco for these figures in the future, which is great. I mean, that's the way to do it. It's a no-risk way to guarantee retail releases on these figures in a form that more people will recognize. But for those who are like the more hardcore collectors, who would recognize who Glenda is and who would be interested in Night Force version of these figures, you can get those. Like it appeals to the people who know what it is, and those who don't know what it is, well, you should get something more familiar to you in the future, thanks to them having the tooling because of this project. So that's
the thing is that we're going to get with Glenda. If you look at that body is Scarlet, Coral. So now you got two figures out of it, and you got two figures that are important in the history of G.I. Joe.
Yeah. So I think that's a very positive thing. Again, Night Force missed out on it, got out too early, but I would have really dug that Night Force Crazy Legs.
The black is just a cool deco. Even I love the Outback in that deco. There's something about it. And I have an extra Tiger Force Outback that was a misship from Hasbro Pulse, so they just told me to keep it.
Oh, well, that's nice.
They were supposed to send me 2 bats and one Outback, and they sent me 2 Outbacks and 1 bat. So they sent me the bat, but they just said, go ahead and keep the other thing. Now, the reason this is in here, obviously, is because this is the pilot for the Tigerfly, which is Recondo, which is the Tiger Force Recondo, who we already have, which is I love that Recondo. I do. I like all the variants. I like all the, for whatever reason, as a kid, I probably wouldn't have wanted this because it's bright yellow. And I'm just like, as a kid, I probably would have been like, that's a little too on the nose, Somebody's going to get shot for that one. I kind of like my helicopters green or black, or keep them, if it's not a rescue chopper. But I like the paint scheme. It's just cool.
I'm sorry.
No, you're good. It's just a cool. It's just one of those cool color schemes.
It's, as a collector, as an adult collector with this on your shelf, it really stands out, and it really is very striking. I had the exact same feelings when I was a kid. Like, this would have been an eyesore, but it looks great on a shelf. It just looks so cool. And yeah, Recondo, because they didn't have Wild Bill, and any guy with a hat and mustache will do. The kids won't notice.
Exactly. Yeah. That was always funny. And now this is the Sky Striker HasLab, looks like. I wasn't collecting when this came out. Otherwise, I would have backed it, because I would have loved to have had a Sky Striker. Now, I know you had issues with your engines. Because I remember.
Yeah.
Did they ever get that taken care of? That's the question.
They did. You can. Well, I've got it here. Look at my Sky Striker's butt. They did. I will admit that the engine debacle kind of left a bad taste in my mouth and kind of diminished my enthusiasm for the Sky Striker until I started putting the stickers on, and that felt like putting together a vintage vehicle. And I warmed up to it after that. It's very, very similar in its basic design and structure to a vintage Sky Striker, and I have a couple of those already. And I know that a lot of people complained, like, we've already had a lot of Sky Strikers, and I understand that. That's a totally valid complaint and a reason why some people might not back it. We have had Sky Strikers in the not too distant past. But first of all, I was happy to see G.I. Joe have a win. This was a great success. This was a successful HasLab campaign, and G.I. Joe needs more wins like that, so I'll take it. There are some differences. There's some details that the vintage one didn't have, some panels that the vintage one didn't have. Of course, it has you can do either the black or the white fins and all that. It's got the stand, which I wasn't sure if I would care about the stand, but the stand actually is really nice. But it took putting the thing together and putting the stickers on to really rekindle my appreciation for it, because you open the thing and it's missing a couple important parts. I was disappointed.
Yeah, and well, I mean, here's the thing. Maybe that act of putting the stickers on kind of reminded you of being a kid doing it, because that was one of those things that as a kid that I really liked the fact that I had to put my toys together before I got to play with them, and then I could do the stickers however I really wanted. But they kind of gave you guidelines, but you could do that if you wanted. You could do it,
I mean, it made the toy yours because you put it together. That there may be a lot of them out there, but that's the one you put together.
Yeah. Now, I put this in here because obviously the Python Patrol officer we got is technically colored for the Python Patrol trooper.
Uh-huh.
I have a couple extras of those that I'm going to probably end up making troopers.
I don't know what was happening at Hasbro at the time. It's like I
think they just wanted to put more yellow into the line.
I mean, you can Recondo can be a helicopter pilot, the officer can be the trooper, cats and dogs living together, mass hysteria.
Yeah. All right. Here's my Swabby. Shipwreck is one of my favorite characters. He's the one that I would probably get no matter what version he was. He's one of the ones that I probably will track down for vintage just because I like the character. I like the traditional outfit. I love the hat. With the classified one, I am probably getting 2 of him, and I've already got a second torpedo on order, and there'll be 2 torpedoes, but I'm going to take the head off the torpedo, and I'm going to make a wetsuit head for Shipwreck.
All right, yeah, you can do something like the version 2, like the 94 with the diving gear. Yeah.
Now here's your Snake Eyes through the years.
Snake Eyes is
obviously a version 1, a 1.5, 2, and then 3, 4, 5. Now, what is this one?
The Shadow Ninjas, 1994. So it uses the same mold as the Ninja Force Snake Eyes, but it had the color change plastic. So like if you put the plastic in hot or cold water, it'll it'll change color. It's supposed to be, they called it Inviso power. It's ninjas turning invisible with Inviso power. They're not invisible, as you can see. The commercial, my recollection is like on the commercial, they used like clear plastic figures and they looked like they were maybe more invisible. That's not what these are. It would be either that color that you see it there or white. They were really like grasping at straws by 92 and not wanting to spend a lot more money on tooling. There are lots of reissues that the entire Shadow Ninjas line from 94 were reissued Ninja Force figures with that color gimmick. It would something.
Now, because he's getting ready to come out in classified version, when I saw this picture, I had to get Grunt, one of the OG 12. I need my OG 12, and I'll be a happy camper with classified by the time I leave. As long as I get my OG 12.
Yeah.
Grunt was one of those figures. Grunt, we got Rock and Roll, we got Zap, and we got Short Fuse. That was some of the first figures that me and my brother got. And
that's a good lineup.
Those figures were kind of, they were the ones that I really loved to play with when we started playing with Joe. I can remember that first Christmas that we got those, and they were just cool. They were cool, interesting figures to play with. I had my Masters of the Universe, and I had the G.I. Joe, and it was one of those things that those first 12 kind of have a special meaning because of where they were in my life at that time. Now, I never got into Steel Brigades. This was kind of one of those mailways that I did not get because this was after Super Trooper and all of that. Now, I'm assuming this is the variant at the end here.
Yeah, that's the version 2. That's the gold head.
It's very interesting to see where they went with the colorations.
Yeah, I mean, as you can see, they were swapping out parts after the first one. Probably just using whatever parts they had on the shelves at the time. There are all these variations. There's one variation. There used to be one that's no longer considered a variation anymore. It's now believed that all of the examples were kit bashed, so they were not real. But these are the variations that are confirmed, at least, to have existed. And Steel Brigade was, Steel Brigade was available for a long time, but apparently they didn't have all of the parts for a long time. So when they didn't have a part, they just, swap in another one.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. Now here's your Vamp lineup.
Oh yeah,
this is probably the most versatile vehicle they had for the first several years. I mean, they reissued it with different colors and different patterns with different weapon accessories on the back. It was just a fun toy. And it's one of those ones that I'm really hoping that we get because we're going to get 5 versions of it, which is great. I can get my Dreadnought version. I can get my Tiger Force version. I can get my green Vamp. I can get my brown Vamp. I can get my Stinger. It was versatile.
There's so much that you can do with it. I mean, obviously you can put it in different colors, but the fact that you can put something different on the back, put a different weapon system on the back, and you change the character of the vehicle. But at its very core, it's a Jeep, right? It's something that you drive around. It can go anywhere on the battlefield. It can go fast. It can, versatile is the word for it. It's one of those most essential vehicles. It's so essential that, like, I didn't really object when they released a Cobra one. because like, yeah, they'll need one too. Everybody got to have one. But yeah, it's so essential that, you know, I would be very surprised if they didn't release one at the classified scale. I kind of was thinking maybe the next HasLab would be a vamp. It seems like, at least before we got the Dragonfly, I thought they would take a step down in size and do something smaller.
Well, if they were going to do the vamp, they could do 2, and then you get a vamp and a stinger.
Yeah,
and that would work perfectly as a.
Yeah, once they do 1, then they can do the rest of them. So hopefully they will. But as you can see, like these are just the vintage versions. There were tons more released after the vintage era, and there's. If you were a kid playing with GI Joe, there are a lot of scenarios where you would need something like the vamp. So why not just keep putting it out there? It's so essential to that type of play pattern that there's always a use for it.
Yeah, and it's just toyetic. So that is the last of those. I left that one for last because I thought it was important that we show that, because when you mentioned it earlier, I was like, I got that picture. It's in there. I didn't want to give you a clue that it was there until I got to it. But so when we were talking earlier, you kind of briefly mentioned about how you focus in on this part of, you know, collecting for you. So do you have hard rules? Are there rules that are hard, or there's rules that are soft, or is there some negotiation? Is there, you know, this might work for today but not tomorrow kind of things?
You know, that's really fair. I think I've softened my rules. If there's any hard rule, it's that I still need to focus mostly on vintage G.I. Joe. But then by putting the qualifier mostly in there, that makes it not a very hard rule. I just try to be careful. I try to not stray too far from my focus, but I don't want to stick to the focus so closely that I miss out on other things that I would enjoy and would be fun. I mean, it's a hobby; it's supposed to be fun. If it's not fun, then something's not right. So yeah, I will. I mean, that's why I dabble. But I don't want to miss out on something that I think will be fun and that I will enjoy. But I have a focus. I have a goal. I have really the same focus that I've had since I started, and that is vintage G.I. Joe. And that's what I still spend most of my time on. That's still what I spend most of my energy and toy hunting on. That's still, you know, that's still where I am.
Well, Lilith has a question about your favorite Snake Eyes version.
Version 2, I know that's the one everybody says, so it's not very original. But yeah, I really like version 2. Version 3 is also very nice, really nice. But it's version 2 is iconic, and it came with the wolf. The only vintage one to come with the wolf, by the way. So yeah, I don't at least I don't recall getting version 3, so I don't have like any nostalgia connected to that. But I did have version 2. I think I had version 2 before I had version 1 because I couldn't find version 1 on the pegs. It was a very popular figure. So it was really hard to get my hands on at the time. I know I eventually did, but it was like later. But version 2 was the one that I had the most connection with. And it was 1985. They really ramped up the detail and, you know, the design and the equipment and everything. So yeah, I'm sticking with that. It's a really standard answer, but I'm a really standard basic guy.
Well, I'm a version 1.5.
That's
I
it.
don't
I'm
like
out
the
of here.
straight arms. I want the swivel arm, but I do like the commando.
Where's the cancel button? I'm out of here. I'm off of this show. I'm just kidding.
That's my preferred. If I'm looking for from a military aspect, a commando makes more sense than a ninja. Always will, always has for me. That's my brain, my head canon. So speaking of head canon, does the lore of a line kind of dictate your interest?
Well, I mean, yes and no. With the toys, I get them and I see them in hand and I kind of decide what I think about them and I like what I like, regardless of where it falls into lore or how it was used anywhere. I mean, I just kind of evaluate each one as it is. The lore kind of guides my interest in the lore, the quality of the comic book and the interesting stories make me want to read more of them. The animated series, I've warmed up to it a bit. I wasn't a fan of it as a kid, but I've warmed up to it, and I can have fun watching it. So yeah, I become more interested in consuming more of that. But it doesn't really guide me in the direction of liking or disliking a toy very much, because like once I have the thing in hand, I'm able to handle it and just see how it moves and how it feels. The toy tells me what, if it's good or not. The toy will tell me if it's if I like it. So
it's
yeah,
the kinesthetic appeal to it that makes you interested in it, not necessarily associated lore or.
Yeah, there's a tactile connection to the toy that you don't get in a cartoon. So I let the toy itself. I let the toy speak for itself and decide if it's good or not. So yeah.
So, are there any vintage lines that you would like to see redone, given today's modern aesthetics and articulation?
The one that comes to mind as probably the obvious one, which would be Mask. That's the one that's neglected, and it doesn't seem like it's really going anywhere. I don't think we're going to see it. But that is the glaring omission of the big 80s toy lines that has not received a modern treatment, with the exception of there's a Matt Tracker a few years ago that was
the Collector Club one.
But aside from that, the broader Mask toy line hasn't been revisited, but it probably won't be anytime soon. Hasbro owns it, and I think the conventional wisdom is that Hasbro probably feels that Mask would occupy the same place in the market that G.I. Joe does, and they kind of be, competing against themselves. Which is
they couldn't put them in. There's no way they could do those in 6-inch scale. They're just,
Oh yeah. I mean, in the classified scale, I think that would be. I mean, other than just the figures, I think that would be impossible. But I know that there are a lot of fans of Mask that would really just like to see it, like to have a new iteration. It's still pretty well remembered.
Yeah.
But we haven't, other than a Matt Tracker figure, we haven't seen it, and it doesn't seem like we're likely to see it.
Well, and we have companies out there that are doing third-party kind of things, like Ramen Toys is doing the Machina, which is the red gull wing, and then they're also doing the Shark, which they're taking chances that companies like Hasbro really they're not willing to get into.
Yeah.
And hopefully, there's not too many cease and desists involved with that, but.
I mean, some companies have gotten away with that for at least some time, and I think you can kind of get it away with it until Hasbro decides that
they want to do it
anymore. But I think Mask fans would even be happy having an update of Mask in that old scale, in the 2.5-inch
Two
figures.
and a half inch, yeah.
Yeah.
I think the tooling and engineering alone, it's weird how we say that now. If you think about how spoiled we were as kids,
Yeah.
how much engineering and tooling went into all of those toys, that was a lot of engineering and a lot of tooling. So that took a lot of work to get those toys out. And now it would be almost impossible to get them.
Yeah, this is one of the things that I've appreciated about being an adult and revisiting this stuff is that is an area of these toys that I had no knowledge of as a kid, but it's like it's a whole new area to explore, learning who the designers were, how they did it, how they put these together, why this and why that. And I really enjoy that. And that's an aspect of collecting that I've enjoyed as an adult that that has no relation to my experience as a kid at all. When I was a kid, the toys came from boxes. You get them at the store and you open them and play. That's as far as I thought about it.
Yeah. So what figures are you missing, or what vehicles are you missing that you want, that you actively would want?
Wow. Most of what I'm missing is in the 90s. I have not everything from the 80s, but I got a lot from the 80s. The 90s, though, I still have some fairly significant gaps, especially in 90s vehicles. I've had my eye on the Detonator a few times, didn't pull the trigger. The General is a monster that I would like to get my hands on, haven't pulled the trigger on that. Yeah, there are some figures here and there. A lot of 90s figures are they're certainly brightly colored, but they can be a little bit underwhelming because a lot of them are just reissues of something earlier. But I really do get some joy and satisfaction from getting a 90s figure that will fill a gap in the collection. I've actually learn to enjoy that. So yeah, 90s figures and vehicles probably would be the top of the list, because that's really where I get the satisfaction of getting something truly new. I've had a lot of those 80s figures now for long enough that the newness has worn off of it, but I still get that experience though. I do not get the nostalgia from them because I wasn't playing with them at the time, but I do still get the satisfaction of getting something new that I didn't have before, and be able to have a new figure that I can see how it works and see look at all the accessories and stuff. So yeah, that's probably not specific enough, but that's my answer.
Do the gaps in the collection bother you?
Not on an emotional level. It's just something that, like, I know I have a goal and I would like to finish. I'd like to finish out the collection. I'd like to finish it off. I do have a lot of the stuff, but there are some gaps. But I've reached a point where I can be patient. As a new collector, I needed everything now. But
you recall how I said within the first month I had all the classified figures that were out and paying premium prices for some of those Cobra Ireland figures too. So I when I got back into it, it was just like I needed it now and I had to have it. But now as I've gotten into it a little more, now I'm more patient. Sometimes I'll just wait till clearance, and then I'll pick up whatever on clearance. That's kind of where I have to go.
Yeah, that can even out. After a while, you realize that even though you think you will never see this again, you will see it again. They are out there. These things were mass produced. It's not the last one. So yeah, I can be patient. It's not burning me up inside. There are a few like fairly rare things like the Sears Dreadnought Air Assault set that I didn't get. I wish I had. But for the most part, most of the stuff that I'm missing is fairly common stuff. I got a lot of the rare stuff as early as I could. I wish I'd got more of it, but I did get a lot of it out of the way. So a lot of it, like, I can be patient. It's not a rush. I know that these battle core figures will be there.
Yeah.
So it's okay. It's okay.
So are there any buyer's regrets, remorse? Do you ever buy something and just like, why did I do that?
Let's see. Yeah. Well, let me ponder. A lot of those things that I got really early, I probably overpaid for them. So there was probably a lot of regret at the time. But like over time, you forget about that and it just becomes part of your collection. Yeah. Oh, you know what? The answer is staring at me in the face right now. That Defiant that I got, my regret is not getting a better starter, getting a better starter vehicle, getting a better shell. There were a lot of parts to replace, but there are also a lot of parts that were broke. There were a lot of parts to get, but also a lot of parts to replace because some of the parts that it did have were not in very good shape. So that thing, it wasn't super expensive, thankfully, but even as inexpensive as it was, I probably would have been better off waiting, maybe even paying a little bit more and starting with a better base vehicle to build up from.
So it's been a time and money suck, is what you're saying.
It's yeah. Like I got a good deal on it. I did get a good deal, but is it really a good deal in the long run? When you have to, like, it has stuff, but some of the stuff it has I can't use because it's cracked or broken or warped, and I have to replace it. It's still pretty far from being done. So yeah, that money pit over there is, I'll say that's my regret.
Okay. Do you ever experience burnout with your toy interest? And that includes doing this and doing your show and that stuff. I know you took a time off for a while, for about a year. Do you ever feel that kind of urge to just walk away?
Sometimes, July, because it's Cobra Convergence, is very, very busy. So I get very, very tired and I have to take a break after that. I have taken a couple more extended breaks, mostly because there are a lot of other things going on in career and life and stuff like that. And I just couldn't juggle everything. But yeah, there are times when I need to not look at anything related to G.I. Joe. I do have other interests. So
it's amazing when people find out that you have other interests, right? Yeah. It's like, do you have other interests?
In fact, I do. But doing something else for a while, like it's refreshing when I come back to it. I don't feel like hanging it up. I don't feel like walking away from it permanently, but I do occasionally need a break from it and like really complete. Like, I do not want to see anything related to G.I. Joe in my line of sight right now. I don't want to, none of it.
Yeah.
But that usually passes because I really do like this stuff. I really do enjoy it. Having a nice break every once in a while just makes me want to come back to it and do more.
So is there anything that you don't do with your toys now that you would like to do?
Um, uh, display them and not have them in boxes.
Well, they're displayed in a fashion.
Yeah. I really do envy the Joburg guys and the other folks that do the play motion stuff. That looks like so much fun. I don't have the time or the space to do anything like that right now, but I kind of wish that I did. It looks like it's a blast, and they look like they have a lot of fun with it, and I'm very happy for them. Maybe someday, but it's unfortunately probably not in the near future.
So, one of the questions that I ask, and it's very similar to the magic question that we would ask if we were doing an intervention with some of. I used to be a clinical program coordinator for a hospital down here in a psych ward, and one of the questions that I would ask patients, and most of the times, was if. For them, it was called the magic question. For you, it's going to be called the magic collecting question. If space and money weren't an issue, what would you collect?
Vacations.
Hey, you know what? It works.
Relating to toys.
But it doesn't have to necessarily be toys. It can be anything. Because there's some. I've had cars. I've had spoons. I've had people say, it's something that you would. If all of those things, all of those difficulties, wishes went away, and you could get what you wanted, just what you wanted, whatever it was. Collection-wise, what would you collect?
Can it be toys though?
It can be toys.
Okay, good. No, honestly, I would finish out my vintage collection. If money and space were no object, in one go, I'd be like, let's do this. There are some things that I have wanted to get my hands on for a long time, and when I say get my hands on, I mean actually hold the thing, and have that tactile connection with it. I think that's what I would do. Although I probably would still dabble here and there and doing other things, I would be pretty satisfied. That has been a goal for a long time, and I do know enough about myself that I am capable of being satisfied when I reach a goal. I can enjoy that moment. So yeah, I would like to finish that out. I would get a lot of satisfaction out of that, and then being in a position where I don't have to collect anything anymore, there are lots of other ways to be a fan, and I can explore those other ways to be a fan, and so it would just be a new beginning of exploring fandom in a new way. So yeah, it's again maybe a trite answer, maybe too obvious an answer, but yeah, it's been a goal for a lot of years, so I probably would finish out the vintage collection.
So, is there any time that you see yourself not collecting? What does that look like to you?
That's tough. Well, I mean, like I said, I'll probably still dabble in a few other things here and there, even after I finish the vintage set. So that's collecting,
Mm-hmm.
So maybe not. Maybe it is something that at least on some level, I would just always continue to do. I say always, but I'm getting older. Eventually, I'm gonna have to go to a home where people will have to take care of me, and I probably won't be able to bring all this stuff with me. So that's probably what it looks like. What does it look like for me? Less hair, drooling, kind of in a chair, kind of. That's how I picture it.
Okay. One of the reasons I started doing this specifically was more of there was so much, what I was catching more often was that negativity and those, for lack of a better word, negative to be negative people in the sphere of toys, and it was getting more and more of them. And I wanted to have a more positive conversation about grown adults playing with toys, whatever it is. And I wanted it to be about how people connect to their collections. One of those things is I want people to find joy. So with that in mind, I have a question. What did you find joy in today?
Today, I found joy in, hold on, it's going to come to me. I found joy in something very specific that I haven't thought of yet. I found joy in this conversation. It's actually been a lot of fun, and I'm glad that we were able to do it. And I'm not being sarcastic. That's
no. I don't take that as being sarcastic. It's one of those things that I think that as adults we forget so often to take a minute just to find something that was positive in the day and find something that we can hold on to. For a lot of us in the toy community, we can get so wrapped up in some of that negativity that just permeates it now that we forget to appreciate it for what it is.
We're playing with dolls, people. They are dolls. I like action figure. That's a marketing term. They are dolls. Let's keep a perspective.
It's supposed to be fun.
Yeah.
This whole thing, everything that goes on, every conversation, all of this other stuff, all the stuff that we do for our channels, that's supposed to be fun. When it stops being fun, I don't know why people keep doing it.
I can't speak for anyone else, but to me, like the point of, getting into a hobby is to enjoy it and to get some fulfillment out of it, maybe even like connect with people who like the same thing. And if you get into it and you are raging all the time and you hate everything, I don't like. Maybe somebody gets some joy out of that. I don't know, but it's just that's just not my personality. If I were to be upset about everything, then I would stop because I would be miserable. So
I don't understand the whole. If you're in this because you like toys but you hate toys, that dynamic to me makes no sense.
And again, confusing. I don't want to speak for everyone else. Everybody's got to make their own choices. But this, I have to be the kind of person that I am, and this is me. So,
and that's the way I am. This is very much me. The way I have this conversation with you, the way I talk to people in general, this is me. I'm on the spectrum, and I have some difficulty sometimes with reading social cues, but that's okay. It is what it is. I don't try to be something that I'm not.
Yeah.
And I had to work really hard to get to be more positive in my life, and I had to go through a lot of bad stuff in order to get to the place where I'm kind and I'm patient, and I'm a lot of things that I wasn't when I was younger. So I think toys in some ways have helped me find that calm, that peace that I needed to manage the stress of dealing with my son and dealing with life in and of itself and not feeling like a total screw up, and that's having this community, which I have found a lot of good people to surround myself. And I keep adding to that community as I meet more and more people like yourself. And, I keep adding people to this circle, and it's getting bigger. So it's a good thing. And I find people that want to be happy about doing this and be positive about it. There's constructive criticism and there's complaining. I'll take constructive criticism over complaining every day.
I would like to say, first of all, congratulations for reaching a better place. That's a challenge, and that takes work. And maybe not everybody understands the kind of work that goes into. But if you've been able to get yourself to a better place and in a better mindset, well done, congratulations, and I hope that you continue that and just keep up that journey.
I'm trying. Now, we didn't do this earlier, but we'll just go ahead and do it. Anything that you picked up this week?
Well, I picked this up from the shelf. I'm gonna put it back. Did I get anything this week? You know what? I don't. I got stuff like last week and the week before, but I don't think I actually got anything this specific week. I still have the Retaliator sitting over here from when I got it at Joe Fest. It's just been sitting there because I don't have anywhere else to put it right now. But the action figure Updraft and his file card, I did get them. That was a couple weeks ago. I completed a couple odds and ends for some upcoming reviews. Not really noteworthy. I just had to pick up an accessory or a file card here and there. It's just been bits and pieces. I've been working on the Cobra Convergence stuff so much, and like I'm also doing another job. I've got a document review job that I'm doing as well. Yeah. That I haven't really focused on picking things up. Now I'm looking over there, and there are a couple boxes that came in to my PO box, which I haven't opened yet. So I don't know what they are. So
it's the mystery delivery. Yeah, I know that feeling because when I get a box like today, I kind of expected these. This is what I got. This is my Animal Warriors of the Kingdom.
Yeah. I saw those guys at Joe Fest. They got some good stuff.
Yeah, and then this is Ash.
Nice.
These are the these are the basic figures. I got these, and these came from HelloDoveToys.com. I have to shout them out because they ship to me really fast, and they're great guys.
Great, nice.
And they're probably in the chat, but they might be and they might not be. But yeah, but with that, since we've asked the main questions, I appreciate you being here, and we've got a short outro. And bye, everybody.